as part of a wider finance reform funded by organizations such as the World Bank, the IMF, or other donors. Take an example. If we now look at the geographical distribution, when we have here again a trend, and the trend is very clear, namely in Africa. And again, taking an example, I think Nigeria, for example, they passed the legislation, and they will move to cash basis IPSAS as from the 1st of January 2014, and to accrual basis IPSAS from the 1st January 2016. I'm talking of Nigeria, but other countries are making the move as well, as other international organizations, such as, for example, the African Union, the IGAD, etc. While the biggest move seems to come from Africa, the trend is also valid in other parts of the world, with accounting reform decided or planned also in Latin America or in Asia, including the Middle East. If you look today at the IPSAS board website, you will see, for example, that Malaysia has started an accrual accounting implementation project based on IPSAS, and that they are planning a gradual transition from 2015 until 2019. So all these examples really show that the trend is there and things are moving in the right direction. Now, what about budgets? Well, if the movement is clear on the accounting side, there seems to be less appetite for accrual budgeting. Budgets remain largely on a cash basis. At present, roughly 9 out of 10 countries use cash budgets, and only 15% of them expect to move to accrual budgeting within the next 5 years. And the reason, which is generally given, is that, well, it's too complex, and politicians are familiar with cash budgeting and do not want to change. This is what was given as reasons in the survey. Moving forward, looking at the benefits. When you talk about the benefits of accrual accounting, again based on IPSAS or similar standards, well, we should remember that the primary objective of financial information is to serve for accountability purposes, but also provide a basis for evaluating the entity's current financial position and performance for decision-making purposes. As Herman van Rompuy, president of the European Council, highlighted when he spoke at the Eurostat conference at the end of May, and I take his words, to put it bluntly, knowing where to go is an elusive question if you do not know where you are. It is very much common sense, but I think it's a very strong statement. Citizens who are both, as you know, taxpayers and service recipients are viewed in our survey as the main beneficiaries of accrual-based financial statements. 77% of the respondents rank them in the top 3 beneficiaries. And indeed, if we compare with a private company, just as the board of directors is accountable to its shareholders, government should be accountable to Parliament and to citizens. And to do that, they need to be transparent and produce accrual accounts based on the highest standards. Not surprisingly, greater transparency and accountability stands out as the greatest benefit. It provides a basis for comparing public sector entities with one another and across individual units, ministries, agencies, departments. Transparent accrual-based financial statements also help governments demonstrate and users to evaluate accountability for the use of public funds. So, the current trend is towards accrual accounting is really positive, but in our view, it's not yet sufficient. All governments, without exception, should use accrual accounting standards, and the long-term economic impact of the political decision should be reflected in the financial statements. we believe there cannot be any compromise. The number of government stakeholders is larger than that of private sector companies, and the value of transactions entered into by governments is also often much greater. On the top of this, a further objective should be to achieve harmonization of high-quality accounting standards on the international level. This would enhance the credibility of government financial statements to its stakeholders, including fund providers such as investors in bonds, for example, and also facilitate comparison across countries as well as political decision-making. Let's now examine the impact of the transition or possible transition to accrual accounting based on IPSAS and learn more about the resulting challenges. Well, from our survey, it's clear that the change to accrual accounting, again based on IPSAS or equivalent standards, is not a quick fix. It takes, on average, more than 3 years. So it's not just about debits and credits. As mentioned by one of our respondents who already made the move, it's important to keep the drive and the momentum going when the project is started and is in progress. However, at the same time, well, you may need to accept that the reform can take several years and proceed in stages. And as we've seen, the example of Malaysia, for example, this is what they are doing. Now, in terms of challenges, the lack of trained staff and the need to invest in IT to cope with the new accounting requirements are ranked as the top 2 challenges. If we talk about training, well, of course, expertise is needed to understand the new accrual accounting concepts and the more complex accounting areas. But training is equally needed for non-finance staff on an operational level, for example, regarding fixed asset management or inventory management. And talking of training in the broader sense, politicians also need to be educated, and a well-thought communication campaign towards the various stakeholders must be organized to explain the new numbers to them as part of the democratic accountability process. Talking of IT, well, of course, new data will need to be collected to provide new type of information, but not only information which is needed to comply with a new requirement, but also information which is useful for management purposes.